Okay, update on the Airfix Seeking build. I have found some resources and using the decal placement sheet as well. I can't recall if I talked about this earlier, but I'll redo it again. Okay, some of the windows that were in the Airfix kit originally are wrong for the Mk50. There's something like 3 windows on one side and another one on the other side. They are wrong and in the wrong spot as well, so I'll start to fill. As you can see, I'll be filled in from behind. I'm leaving the outside alone until a bit later on the build. On the other side, I've had to fill all the windows in, and as you can see, I'm starting to mark out a new window being put in. That window is also should be a bit smaller than the rest of the windows in the kit. As you can see there, she is slightly smaller. Okay, what I've done so far is I've used epoxy putty to fill in the hole in the floorboard. So I don't know why there was a hole there, and nothing seems to go into it that I can quickly see off the instructions, but I didn't really look at the instructions that well anyhow. So that's filled in, smoothed off, and using Mr. Surfacer to fill in all the holes that are all over the place. Put the floorboard in and the bulkhead up behind the cockpit, and I've found some pictures online which I might throw into the back of this video just as reference. It shows this bulkhead is actually in the wrong spot. What I plan to do, there is a door here, I plan to open that door so that you can see in, and there's going to be stairs well there as well. However, that bulkhead is directly, as you can see here, there's the window and the bulkhead. It will look like it will actually interfere with the opening of the door. You'll actually see it, so that has to come out. However, having said that as well, from what I can tell from the pictures, there is no bulkhead on this side of the cockpit. So as you can see there, I'm actually, let me get something pointed out, I've marked off and I'm going to remove it. The only part of the bulkhead that seems to remain is there is actually some sort of instrumentation panel or control set here, and it's fairly deep. It'll go back probably about here somewhere, so about 4 or 5 mil deep, and it actually goes up to almost the edge of the frame there. So I've got a bit of modification to do there. Scratch building the interior is a bit of a challenge. I've found varying images of the internals of Seeking. Some show structure, some show fabric material over the structure. I've got a few questions out on a few bulletin boards asking whether or not the Australian Mk50s you could see the framework inside or not. So that's holding me up a bit on the build. Okay, talk about the kit in general. The fit. I believe I mentioned earlier that the fit on some of the reviews said that the fits were bad, alignment problems, gap problems. That's an understatement. Slightly, very quickly. As you can see, the bottom here, there's a bit of a misalignment in the nose. Actually, where's that part? There's 2 parts that stick out like a sore thumb with the alignment issues. There's this part here. Admittedly, some of that join there is my fault because I've put a bit of plastic card on one side the fuselage base just to seal up the gap that's inside it. But when you put this part on top, as you can see, there's one massive gap sitting there. Even if I push it forward, there's actually a step in the nose. So that's going to require a bit of work to sort out. As you see there's a bit of flash down this part. This is where supposedly some lights are. So I have to scratch build a lens for each one of those, put it in properly. The other problem that you see straight away in gap issues is when you mount the engine intakes at the top. Trying to get this thing to sit squarely. It doesn't sit squarely. You've actually got to manhandle it. As you see there's some nice gaps. So this is turning into a bit of a challenge. It might take me the next 6 months to do this, I think. So far, what else have I done? Okay, I've put the canopy on a couple of times. I actually showed down the canopy. There's some lugs here that appear to be part of the framing and also go inside the model. And there's some nice pin injection ridges there, so I had to sand them down. But as you can see, more alignment issues everywhere. So when I put the clear transparency on top later on, I've got a lot of work to smooth it in properly with the surrounding fuselage. I did have a problem where the canopy itself is wider than the fuselage, but because I've put this shim in here along the floorboard, it actually pushed out the fuselage quite a bit and stopped me having to worry about the width of the canopy. There's still a bit of width problem there, but I'll fix it up later on with a bit of work. And okay, that's about it for the Sea King at present. As soon as I find out what's happening with what's to go with the interior, if there's framework, I'm going to be using evergreen 20 thou by 30 thou strips to create the framework inside. If it's material, I'm thinking of doing something along the lines of tissue paper or something like that to give the impression of material interior. So there's still going to be some fancy work in there. Then I'll be scratch building seats. I think there's seats on one side. Seats on this side, and there's crew stations on here for the airborne warning system or the buoy system that they actually use on these helicopters. I've got a few things to do here behind the cockpit bulkhead, and the cockpit control console, the center console, is a piece of garbage. Airfix have really oversimplified it. Not only is it wrong in its profile, but also it doesn't, if you look down there properly, it doesn't sit in there like a control column. From what I can tell from the diagrams, there's one. It actually is, take that out. I've got to add a bit more width to it and a bit more height around the edges. This part of the console here, the angle is wrong. It's actually a bit more shallow, and there's actually two parts. There's one part that comes off and another shallower part, so I've got to figure out how to do that. Scratch build some cockpit seats and a few other weird and wonderful, so there's a bit of work here. So that's all for this update.